Hello, I'm Kråkan, also known as Corvus, and welcome to Yacc, yet another Crowcast where I pick a game, I play it for a week, and then I'll talk about it. This week's game is the Eternal Castle Remastered for the PS4. It was released in 2021 and it's a cinematic platformer adventure developed by TLF Studio LLC, published by Severed Press, DTY, Ltd. And there will be spoilers up ahead, just so you know, but first a little backstory. I was browsing PSN and I've under the category unique, and I found this game. It popped out. It looks really interesting, and it had a good price as well. So as you start up the game, you are prompted to select a language and later new game or load game. So the story of the game is explained, but the font is very hard to read. But in summarization, it says it's set in a timeline where humans had to evacuate Earth after conflict with a cybernetic enemy, and you're sent down there to basically save the day. So either you play as a man or a woman. So the man is named Adam and the woman is named Eve. So I think this game is also 2 players, but I didn't have the pleasure to have someone to play with. So when you selected who you want to play as, you are prompted to a cutscene where you are in your spaceship going through the atmosphere and you get shut down and you're forced to eject yourself from the plane, and you end up in a tree. You're stuck with your parachute. So you have to wiggle your way out of there and fall to the ground, which is kind of a funny scene. And right off the bat, this game looks amazing. It has this neon filter with like 4 colors on the screen at the same time. So a good way to explain this game, it's very cinematic, and it's like Prince of Persia or like Another World, the game that Eric Schei made. The character is like a black silhouette against the neon background. So the starting area is basically the tutorial. You learn how to jump and run and pick up things. So not for long, you pick up a gun, you use the L2 button and the square button to fire it. You do that to open a door to enter a facility. So throughout the game, you will get these question marks that will pop up on screen, and they usually involve reading. So that's the main difference between Adam and Eve. Eve actually reads most of the text, while Adam doesn't. So that's kind of funny. He just says there's a lot of text. So I went through the facility and I came out the other end, and there was this cool effect with like water, like a waterfall, I guess. And I found these like checkpoints in form of shrines. You sit down and meditate and you heal yourself a bit. And if you die at any point, you will respawn at the last checkpoint that you were meditating at. So a bit later, there is this interaction with there's like this lake you have to cross, and there's a barking dog on the other side, and you have to push like a 3 or construction down the water in order to cross. The one thing I didn't know was that this was an acid lake, and I pushed the tree down and it sprayed the dog with acid and killed it. So this game is kind of brutal right off the bat. So a bit further in, there are these traps that they basically hang stuff from wires from the ceiling, like cars and heavy objects, and if you trip the wire, it will fall down. Later on, I have to run back through all the traps again, chased by dogs, and the dogs aren't as smart, so they trigger the trap, so yeah. So from this point, I went into a facility and opened a door via a computer, avoided some automatic turrets, and eventually I end up with the first boss, which is this huge robotic thing. And I panicked and died here because I didn't have any bullets in my gun, and I forgot that I can actually kick and punch. But you basically need to avoid his attacks and beat him down and pick up his remains at the end. So after this bit, you're introduced to a hologram of a naked girl, and I think this is the representation of the AI. So you climb up to the surface and you get to your ship, and this is where the game opens up. So when you reach the ship, you are prompted to the game's title in this cinematic view, and you're prompted to select the locations you want to go to. You basically need to repair your ship. You need to get the necessary parts. So the first area I explored was the waste. So I ended up in a graveyard and I found a shotgun, and I was killed by mutating monsters and dogs. And it was this really creepy kind of thing. It ends up in a mansion the further on you go. And there's this weird experiment with mutations, and you actually end up being mutated. In one of the areas, you have to go through some turns and whatnot, and you turn back into a human. You have to fight this big creepy boss that, in true Resident Evil style, he injects himself with some weird stuff, and you have to fight him and this other weird monster kind of with scissors, if that makes sense. Later there was this area which it's like a desert area, and there's this funny little thing where an enemy actually plays with a ball, so you can take him out, like a sneak attack, and you take out his buddies as well. Moving on, there's more sneaking and like a sneaking segment, and I think there are some police-looking androids that you're on. They're either like against each other. It's like a war zone. So you basically have to go through a war zone, and you end up with a sniper segment on the top of some roofs, and you have to like chase him down, which is really cool. And throughout this fight, there's also a helicopter, but it's easy to outrun it. So I don't really want to spoil more of the game because it looks really cool, and it's a game that needs to be played. So gameplay. Get your 4 different parts for your ship to restore it and confront the enemy AI in the end. Control, the D-pad moves the character around, X or up jumps, circle ducks, triangle kicks, square punches, options brings up the option menu, L2, and the square button fires your gun or the weapon you're currently having in your hands. Oh, another thing about the guns, they're very limited on ammo, so you have to swap guns a whole lot. Graphics. The animations looks very smooth. The displays has only 4 colors, with you as the character as a silhouette against the background. With a pixelated style, the bare minimum, but it gets the job done. It looks absolutely beautiful. And another thing about the color scheme, Adam's color scheme is mostly light blue, and Eve's is light purple. Sound and music. Giacomo Langella made the music for this game with additional tracks from Ogre Sounds. And it is a nice synth track, and it reminded me a bit of Blade Runner. Easter egg, secrets and glitches. So it's not really a glitch, but it's kind of a funny thing more than anything. Every time you get an energy upgrade so you can restore your ship, you get teleported back to the ship, and every time this happens, Adam pukes. And I thought that was kind of funny. But I imagine being ripped into molecules and being put back again is not good for your stomach anyway, so... In conclusion, I wrote, yes, play it. It's a visual game, really cinematic, and it does a really good thing with the environmental telling a story. It looks like an Atari game on the surface, but it's more complex than that. So I didn't get to finish the game this week, but I had a lot of fun playing it. There are some hard segments at the end where you are chasing down the sniper, and even before that with like the war zone, you have to basically go through a war zone with scarce ammunition, and you have to like be really careful, duck behind covers, and sometimes that's not enough. You get shot and killed anyways, but it's a really cool game, relatively cheap on PSN as well. So yeah, anyway, thanks for listening and or watching, and take care.